I'm filming inside this week because it's a bit windy out there and it's been raining quite a lot, but I have managed to get some good footage and put together a video on birds. So this week I'm going to teach you how to be a twitcher. And being a twitcher doesn't mean learning to do this, although you can do that if you want to, but it means twitcher is someone who's really keen on watching birds and they'll travel a long way. So I'm hoping that this week, just by teaching you a little bit about birds and how to go out and look for them and how to help them, it might inspire you to go out and see how many birds you can spot. So birds are one of the easiest and best bits of wildlife to spot, and there's a few reasons for this. One of them is that you don't even need a garden. All you need to spot birds is a window. It helps if you have something like this, a pair of binoculars, so you can look like a bit of an idiot and sit and get really close-up views of, especially if you've still got the lens cap on, get really good views of birds out your window. I'm now getting a really good view of Rich, who's filming this for an extreme close-up of Rich's beard. But you can use binoculars, or you can just use your eyes. You don't need to live in the countryside, you can live in a city, and there's some really cool stuff about bird watching. One of the things is that actually if you live in the city you might see different birds to somebody who lives in the countryside, and you might see different birds at different times of year. So species like blackbirds are birds that we have all year round, and those blackbirds will hold territories in the same place. So they'll have areas where they hang out and they won't move very far from those, and then other species travel a really long way. And April and May are really good times of year to look out for some of the most amazing birds that fly the furthest distances. We get birds like swifts and swallows, and some of them, really incredibly, fly from 12,000 miles away, which is utterly unbelievable. They fly maybe 200 miles a day, and they travel here to have their babies and to feed when it's warmer in summer, and then go south towards Africa in winter. I think there might be four. I think there might be one tucked away at the back. Yeah, four. And then we get other kinds of birds which do something a bit more complicated. So some of our robins, it might be surprising for you to know that some of our robins actually don't live here all year round. Some of them do, and then some of them come in from Europe in winter. Same with starlings, and starlings are a personal favourite because I live in Somerset, and in the winter we have our own starlings that all gather in big numbers, but we also get starlings coming in from Europe, and we might end up with 500,000 or 1 million starlings, and they gather for protection and for warmth, and they gather in really big numbers, and they do what's called murmurating, which is when they make amazing patterns in the sky. In your own garden or out of your own window, you might have as many as 20 species that you can see, or even 30 species. So keep an eye out, maybe make your own garden list, start making a list of everything that you can find, and every time you see a new species you can add it to your garden list. To help you with ID, there's some birds that are easier and some that are more difficult, but there's loads of guides. I've got some books which I use quite a lot. So there's a few books like, just kind of the more professional book like the RSPB book, or there's some kind of quite simple books which are really great and they've all got pictures in. And there's books which also have, this one's got a CD with it that lets you hear how the birds sound. So as well as looking for the birds out the window, you can also have a listen for them. And there's 2 times of day that are really perfect to go out and listen for birds. One of them, unfortunately I'm not a morning person, but one of them is early in the morning. And this morning I did get up at 5:45, went outside, had a little listen, made a little video for you. Sometimes birds are quite shy, so you might only hear them, you might not see them. And it might be quite surprising if you go outside, especially in the spring, maybe between about 5 AM and about 7 AM, how much louder it is than in the middle of the day. And the birds in the spring are really, really loud because they're singing to advertise to a mate, to say, here I am, I'm lovely, come be my friend. Or they might also be advertising to other males might be advertising to each other to say, it's my territory, back off, it's my house. Or they might just be shouting to say, oi, there's a cat nearby, or oi, there's a human. So they've got all sorts of different calls and they communicate in a really complicated way, and each species sounds slightly different. So it's really good. It's a bit like learning a different language, so it's quite hard. I still find it really hard. And I'm not brilliant on bird calls, but once you get your ear in, you can start to learn some more simple ones and gradually build up and learn different ones over time. Another really good time of day to go outside, although it may or may not be a little bit past your bedtime at the moment, but is just as it's getting dark, and especially as we get into maybe August or September and even in winter, it's a really good time of year to go outside and listen as it's getting dark at sunset. And the things we're listening for there are nocturnal birds, which are really active just as it's getting dusky. And those might be species like owls. And most of you may have already heard owls. You can hear owls in towns and cities, you can hear them in the countryside. The one thing that a lot of people forget is that not all owls say twitwoo. And actually you can really impress people because you can tell them it's actually only the male tawny owl that says twitwoo, twitwoo. And the females will make more of a screechy noise like tweet, 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 tweet. It won't be a barn owl because they sound different, and barn owls sound more screechy. So they sound more like with all owls, it's actually much easier because it's getting dark to hear them rather than see them. So listening out for birds is really great. In terms of spotting birds, you could just look out the window, or you could try and encourage birds into your garden. There's a few different things you can do to do this. So as I said a few weeks ago, water is really great for birds. They might have a bath in it. You might see birds having a bath in a bit of dust or something like that as well if you've got a bit of bare earth. Water's really good for them drinking. And the other thing you can do is plant some plants that have flowers, berries, seeds, nuts, all that kind of thing. Birds love them. My personal tip is if you plant something called teasel, and teasel's a really big plant, so you need to keep it under control a little bit, make sure it doesn't go everywhere in your lawn. You might have to dig out the seedlings in the spring, but it is possible to keep it under control. And if you leave the seed heads in winter, you get loads of birds, particularly a beautiful bird called goldfinches, which will come and eat the seeds from your teasel, and I get them in my garden every winter. And teasel also is brilliant for bugs, which Ellie's going to talk about next week. Another thing you can do, and it is actually the most popular pastime apparently in the UK after fishing. Fishing's number one, feeding birds is number two, and there's lots of things you can do to feed birds. This is a bird table, and you can make your own bird table, or this was a birthday present for me, and you can put your food out. You can put anything on here, bread, bits of leftovers, vegetables. I've actually got some old seed heads from last year that I've put out, and a few old sunflower seeds. So this is a different bird feeder, and it's got wire around it to stop squirrels from stealing the fat balls in here. And we get lots of different birds on this one as well. And if you want to get a better view of the birds, because this one's a little far away from the house, you can do something like I've done here. So here I've put up my trail camera, and yesterday I saw how many birds I had coming to the bird table and the bird feeder in about 6 hours. If you don't have a camera like that, there is a simple cheaty way to do it, which is that you can get a tablet or a phone, and you can just charge it up, make sure it's not raining, ask your parents first, and then you can make sure it's somewhere it's not going to get stolen, and then you can put your bird feeder out, and you can just place your device on record with the video facing the feeder and see what good videos of birds are. 3 things I'm going to show you today. First of all, I'm going to show you how to make your own fat balls, like the ones that I've bought. So you can buy them. This is the ones that I've bought and I've put out in my feeder, and the birds love these. And this bucket is really actually great because I can turn it into a pond afterwards if I want to as well. So it's perfect mini pond sized. So you can buy these, or you can actually make your own. You can use any kind of fat, so things like suet, but I've used good old-fashioned lard. So went out and bought this when I went out and did my weekly shop. So you basically want to melt down the lard. I'm using an old saucepan because I don't think Richard would be very happy if he found out that I was putting mealworms into one of our normal saucepans. And you want to just add so much dried food that it's almost gets rid of all the liquid, and it's almost just kind of like a sludgy mix in there. So when you've made your mixture and it's cooled down enough so that it's safe, and before it, just when it starts getting a little bit thicker but before it goes white, you can put it into a container. And there's a few different ways you can do this. You can use a plastic pot, cut a hole in the bottom and put some string through, and make sure you put the string in the middle, and then put it in the fridge. Make sure it's in a container like this so that if any fat leaks out the bottom it will catch it. And leave it for a good few hours, if not overnight. And then you can actually cut the plastic, you can leave the plastic pot on if you like and put it on the tree, it'd be fine. But you can cut the plastic pot away if you like, and then it will make you one of these. So that's just with the plastic pot cut away. So I can then go and just hang this out on my trees. Another good idea is if you get an old coconut shell, and you can make a bit of a hole in the coconut shell, and then again you can leave that on your bird table or hang it from a tree or something like that. And it's got your bird food mix in the middle of your fat ball. You can make them a bit of a food necklace. Don't think I'd want to be wearing this as a necklace anymore, but it's an old bit of wire. You can use garden wire, you can use any kind of wire you've got, maybe from DIY, your parents might have from DIY or something like that. This one's quite cool though because it will easily hang on a tree. And what I've done here is it's a bit of a cocktail party for the birds. So it's a bit like what we used to, I don't know if you guys still get this, you probably get something much nicer, but when I was growing up and I was a kid, you always used to get cocktail sticks with cheese and apple or cheese and onion on them. So we are giving the birds their own cheese and apple necklace. So there's a few different ways, so give it a go and see which one the birds in your garden like the most, and you can try changing the recipe and see what works and see what doesn't, and good luck with twitching and bird spotting.